Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football, and welcome back to our spring position previews and breakdown. This time we're in the secondary, so you guys know that I'm already really excited about this one. We'll talk about cornerbacks and nickels here, but before we get into that, let me introduce the rest of the crew. I'm Lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, of course, pleased to be joined by the estimable Gerry Hamilton and the newest member of the On Texas Football family who needs no introduction, our own Jeff Howe. All right, also, this spring position preview brought to you by our good friends at Bond Lane, bondlane.com. I'll give you a very special message about our very special sponsors after we get done with our breakdown. But first, let's dive into it, gentlemen. The cornerback position for Texas, departing the cornerback position and nickel. Of course, the guy who represented both of those positions on his time in the 40 acres, Jaylen Barron, the Thorpe Award winner. Also, Gavin Holmes departing as well, exhausted his eligibility, and Javion Cole hit the transfer portal for the Longhorns and the secondary. But coming back for the Longhorns, just to get the table, set the table for us, Jaylen Gilbo, who is a nickel / corner for them, Malik Muhammad, Kobe Black, Santana Wilson, also nickel dime linebacker / safety, Gelani McDonald. You got Wardell Mack as well. And I don't even know if we can talk about Jordan Johnson-Rubel as a nickel. I know there was some experimentation with him there, and we'll talk about that too. Then the freshman class coming up, which I really like this group of corners. Cade Phillips, the 5-star, Grayson Littleton, 4-star, and then Caleb Chester out of H-Town, also a really, really good man coverage specialist. All right, gentlemen, let's dive into it. I think the biggest question to answer has got to be, and maybe we got different, obviously different takes on this, but I think the most pressing issue is who's going to start opposite Malik Muhammad for the cornerback position.
I think you're right, Rod, and it leads us right to Jaylen Gilbo. Is Jaylen Gilbo capable of playing a corner position full time? Because if he proves to be, then that kind of may answer a question. But Rod, I was going to lead you right into this. What would it take for Jaylen Gilbo to be a full time corner? Would it take? Could he be asked to play if Texas played more man? Are you going to put him on an island against a speed receiver? Because when Texas faced that, they went to a Gavin Holmes last year at times. Does he have the speed to play, and what scheme would suit him best, or playing within a scheme if he was to transition to corner as Jaylen Barron did?
Yeah, to me, a lot of it will be about eye discipline for Jaylen Gilbo. I think his eyes get him in trouble a lot of the times at the nickel position. Whether he's got the speed to play corner, that's something I really haven't necessarily seen. I haven't seen him lack speed to play the cornerback position. Remember, we questioned whether Jaylen Barron had straightaway speed. Right. We proved that at the NFL Combine. I think for Jaylen Gilbo, I definitely think they should experiment with him as a possible solution there. And then we'll talk about Kobe Black and also talk about Cade Phillips. But Jeff, when I look at Gilbo, I look at a guy that's got some versatility. He's got to take his game to the next level to be a guy that can be consistent in coverage. That's what you need at the cornerback position, somebody who's consistent in coverage. I like what he did at nickel. I didn't love it. I thought at times in coverage, he at times was taken advantage of when Texas played against a good receiving core with a good quarterback. That didn't happen very often, but when it happened late in the season, we saw Jaylen Gilbo at times was exploited in that manner. And I think that's something for him. That a lot of that was eye discipline when teams went after him.
That's the big difference for me between him and Jaylen is you look at Jaylen in 2023, he played, and really even go back to 22, he played that star position at an elite level. The big deal with Jaylen coming back was he just got feedback that, the league really doesn't value you if you're just a nickel guy. They want to see you play either corner or safety. And, Jaylen's going in the first round this year. Congratulations to him after winning the Thorpe Award. But I go back to this, guys. I say the same thing I said with Gilbo with Jaylen moving to corner last year. You can do that if the drop-off is not significant from Barron to Gilbo at star. What is the drop-off from Gilbo at star to Gelani McDonald at star? And also, what does your depth look like at corner? I think two things at corner. I think that job is either going to go to one of the young guys that we haven't seen a ton of yet. Gerry, you can talk about Santana Wilson because I know you've heard a lot of good things about him, but Grayson Littleton's a guy that we've heard good things about early. Cade Phillips, I think, will get a look there. Kobe Black played there a little bit. I do my thing with Kobe Black is I do wonder, Rod, we talked about this as Texas gets away from being a true field and boundary defense. how much does that impact his future and ideally where he best fits in. But I'm not after these coaches get out of the spring, and keep in mind, you've got all new coaches in the secondary. I mean, Kenoto Hudson was around last year as an analyst. Mark Orfe's new, and with Coach Akina coming back, I don't think it's out of the question, guys, that they could go into the portal for a corner, depending on how the spring goes. And I don't think it would be necessarily the talent that they don't like. They just might not. They just might want a little more seasoning at that position. Just maybe somebody a little bit older at corner before you have to make the full-on transition to letting those guys be primetime guys.
They've invested a lot in this, and you could talk about this, Gerry, in their last 2 recruiting classes in the secondary overall. Remember, my theory was that it was kind of the last phase of roster construction for Texas was to attack that secondary. So I think they got the kind of athletes they like. But you're right, Jeff, they're inexperienced, and I think it was been 10 DBs they brought in the last 2 recruiting classes. What 6, 7 of those have been basically kind of nickel corner guys that could play either one of those. Gerry, what do you think? I think that they really want one of these young guys. Now, it could be a Santana Wilson. It could be Cade Phillips, because I've seen that guy. I've talked to both of those guys, and they take a lot of pride in their man coverage. Because if Texas is shifting more to man coverage, like I have theorized and hypothesized, it could help some of these younger guys kind of, transition, because it is much tougher to play the pattern match coverages. All right, and for a younger player, because it's all about route recognition and also being on the same page with the rest of the secondary. So I think some of the older guys may have some advantages there if they're going to be more of a pattern match team. But they're shifting more to man. I started as a sophomore at Texas. Can we play 70% man coverage? Hell, that's easy. That's an easy transition for a young player. So Gerry, I think it depends on also where the coverages are going, or at least where this defensive philosophy is going as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. And to follow up on Jeff's point, here's where things are really good for the young kids if Texas doesn't go to the portal. Then you're like, okay, as a Texas fan, you say, we got some really good options here, right? Mm-hmm. And if they go to the portal, you're like, okay, our young guys aren't ready. This is pretty cut and dry on that. Santana Wilson had a really good redshirt year. I've been told this 3 separate times throughout the year, last week. Does that mean he's going to win a starting job? I can't say that right now. He's got a new set of eyes. Rod, you need to talk about that too. New set of eyes. I mean, Mark Orfe at corner. Hudson had the same set of eyes, but coach of the nickels. Dwayne Akina, new set of eyes come in. They may see these guys differently than Blake Gideon and Terry Joseph did. And even the nickels coach that went to Wake Forest is the it's Hazelton. It's different eyes see things differently. Mark Orfe might want something different at his corner to what you're talking about if Texas is going to play more man. But I think Texas has a lot of – look, I think Caleb Chester is the sleeper in the 25 class. Rod, we had him on. He was as football intelligent as any kid we've ever had on this show, just breaking down his huddle. He's like, I can keep going. We're like, it's plenty. All right, that's like 7 plays. You're done. You got to move on with the interview. But that guy's a technician. He is a football junkie, and I'm not saying he's going to go win a job as a true freshman, but I'm saying some of these guys like Santana Wilson during his red shirt, you forget about these guys. Caleb Chester, not one of the more highly ranked guys, so he's not going to be talked about as much as Cade Phillips or Grayson Littleton. I think the other interesting thing is Grayson Littleton. Where does he factor into this? We've heard really good things since he got to Austin in January. The interesting thing with him was recruited as a nickel corner, as I mentioned earlier, but Mark Orfe recruited him heavily as a corner at Rutgers. So he obviously, Rutgers about to have 3 corners drafted in a row in the NFL that he coached. So Mark Orfe obviously saw something in him that he really, really liked because he knew he wasn't going to get him, but he still recruited him really hard. So it's going to be interesting. And then Rod, the Wardell Max, does he stay at a nickel? Does he get a shot at corner here? And there's a lot of options. You have Kobe Black the interesting thing about it is I think some people are like, we're going to be inexperienced at corner. But just remember, Manny Muhammad came in as a freshman and made it mark in the spring and ended up taking a job. Is that going to be – what young kid is that going to be to Jeff's point, Santana Wilson? Is it going to be Cade Phillips just because he's so ultra-talented and he's proven people wrong about being able to play corner his senior year? Is it going to be somebody out of nowhere, Caleb Chester? Or is it Kobe Black just going to lock it down? It's going to be really interesting to see. But my key takeaway from this is if they do not go to the portal after the spring, Texas fans should feel very good about the corner spot.
Yeah.
You talk about the new set of eyes, Rod. I think about that secondary you were a part of when Coach Akina came into 2001. I mean, people that don't remember, Dakari Pearson was a freshman All-American in 2000. Coach Akina comes in and just wants something different. And Dakari Pearson's coming off the bench because Ahmad Brooks got moved from corner to safety, and you had the best secondary in the country. I even think about when Coach Akina left and Chris Vaughn and Vance Bedford came in 2014. Mikkel Thompson really struggled at safety. They moved him to corner, found out his vision wasn't great, got him wearing contacts. He ends up being a draft pick. So sometimes, to Jerry's point, that fresh set of eyes can make a really big difference.
Yeah, no, I remember it well, Jeff. It's a great point to bring up. And, Coach Akina, as pass game coordinator, there will be some influence there. And Coach Akina liked the best 5 guys to play. That's why Ahmad Brooks won that spot. He's like, on my best 5 DBs, I'll find a place for you. I just need you to step up. And that's why guys would end up ascending in different positions throughout their careers, because Coach Akina be like, hey, man, I want you. I think you're doing really well. I think you should move to safety. There's some reps there. You probably earn, you may not be able to earn the spot at corner, but you can win the spot at safety. And he put guys at safety like a Brooks or Adrian Phillips or somewhere, and those guys would win the spot. So not saying that's going to happen here, but to your point about fresh set of eyes, Gerry, you're right about that.
And the discipline is so huge, man. Look, Texas had some talented corners, and they didn't have the discipline to play at the level Texas won. They put him on a Vaughn Lane bus out of town, right, Rod? So boom. Look, you played for Dwayne, it. It's the eye discipline is the least talked about, but most important part about playing the cornerback and the defensive back position in general.
Yep.
Herm Edwards would give this speech every year at the Under Armour game, and Dion would too, about eyes, the discipline with your eyes, that discipline playing that position. So we talk about all these skill sets, and the crazy thing is we weave through all these guys' individual talents, and it's really going to come down to their discipline.
No, it's a great point there, Gerry.
The best example we've talked about over the years, Rod, with that, to Jerry's point about talent, in that late 2000s, early 2010s DB room, Shockey Brown might have been the most guy in that room. But, Rod, you said it, you pointed out to me many times, Shockey didn't have very good eyes. Shockey was a draft pick and ended up being part of a Super Bowl champion in Baltimore. But one of the reasons why he wasn't drafted higher and maybe didn't have a longer career in the league was his eyes weren't very good.
Yep, totally agree with you. That's one thing. Actually, Gelani McDonald's got good eyes.
Yeah.
Speaking of guys who have good eyes in that secondary and him shifting different positions, let's kind of go down, kind of the list here of the DBs, and I'll tell you what kind of spring I think they need to have. Because Jay, you brought up a good point about 2 guys. I think this is a huge spring for them, and we'll get to it. Malik Muhammad, and I've been studying Malik Muhammad. I'm going to do more of a deep dive on him. People want to know what happened to Malik Muhammad this year. Listen, I don't think Malik Muhammad had a horrible year, but there were times where he's a technician and his technique failed him.
Yeah.
That's what he's got to work on this spring. And that's why it's because Sark said it's going to be a teaching spring about teaching fundamentals, getting back to they want to make sure that everybody kind of understands the nuances, the details, be meticulous about that. It's going to be a really good spring for him. Big spring for him. Everybody knows he's a starting corner. Nobody's going to challenge him for that. All right. But for him, that can't be enough. He's a guy that could be an all SEC caliber defender. He's got to step up. But yeah, Kobe Black, Cade Phillips, and Santana Wilson, all guys who could potentially contend for that spot opposite of Malik Muhammad. And I think for Wardell Mack and Santana Wilson specifically, because other guys seem to have roles in the secondary already. Malik Muhammad, of course, has a role. Gelani McDonald, we'll get to him. He has many roles. Kobe Black, I think, is going to have a role on this team. At least last year started to forge one. And I think it's because, he's a guy, a coverage specialist, and they want guys who can straight up cover out there. That's why Cade Phillips, I think, is going to end up having a role. What is Santana Wilson's and Wardell Mack's role? And I think because of 2 things they're going to value in the secondary now. And Coach Akina is actually, I think, doubling down on this philosophy. We know they like versatility. Love it, by the way. All right. Position flex. And we know they like coverage specialists. I think Santana Wilson is a coverage specialist. I think Wardell Mack is one of the more versatile guys in the secondary. They have to lean into that this spring. And the coach and come out this spring going, man, Wardell Mack, we got to get him on the field somewhere, and we can because of his versatility. And Santana Wilson, a coverage specialist, shows them that, hey, this guy can compete with the best coverage specialist that we have. And even like a guy like a Gavin Holmes, who, Gavin Holmes wasn't necessarily a starter for Texas, but he was a coverage specialist and carved the role out as a dime cornerback. Like, can they carve out those roles in the secondary? What I want to know for some of these guys.
My thing with some of those guys you mentioned, Rod, I go back to something Sark mentioned in the press conference on Monday, talking about last year they did it, but he mentioned Trevor Gooseby specifically with as many high leverage snaps as he had to play late in the year. Sark said they almost asked themselves the question as a staff, like, did we do this kid a disservice by not playing him more in some of those non-conference games where he could have got more snaps? I think those non-conference games are going to be huge for these guys. And honestly, look, as wonky as special teams was last year, I think the gunners and jammers on the coverage teams and the return team,
that's good.
You need to have you need to have a couple of these corners emerge as like frontline special teams, quote unquote, starters for you. That may be where Wardell Mack and Santana Wilson, that may be their roles.
That's a good point.
Is on teams.
Yep, that's actually, and I can tell Coach Aquina coming back in, he's going to take pride in that too. And his guys, big on special teams. I mean, that was one of his calling cards as well. Getting back to it though, Gelani McDonald. Let's discuss Gelani McDonald real quick and just what his role could be. Last year, really shined in the big nickel, and then when he was that Vanderbilt game, I believe it was. Where he got to start. Love how and it's something you got to do well in Texas defense. Play the run from depth as a safety. So when your eyes come in and being able to run the alley, take precise angles to the football after those gaps are canceled. He did a great job of that, run the alley. So I know he can be a really good safety. And then we saw what he did as a big nickel. And I thought he was really impressive as the big nickel there. And then we hear Sark. I love he could play the dime linebacker spot too. Ooh, that was pretty interesting. So, I mean, what ideally, guys, do you think is the best, I don't know, role for Gelani McDonald, or is this his best role that he fits wherever needed?
I think it's fit wherever he's needed, and it's also matchup dependent, Rod. I mean, the first time I knew Texas had something in McDonald, you knew he was talented, but then coming out of high school, he never concentrated on one position his entire life, right? He was the jack of all trades at a smaller school, quarterback, all of it, but a tremendous player. But when he's played a lot of nickel against Michigan, I was like, ooh, that's interesting. That's a lot of trust to put on a kid in the road, a young defensive back on the road, right? So Texas obviously thought he had mental capacity, and he had the vision, he had the eyes, right? You don't put him in that situation. Now, Michigan struggled offensively. They didn't have a good quarterback, but still, that's a big environment to put a young defensive back in. That's normally your experienced guys. So that's the first time I knew they thought they really had something with him. But I think this nickel spot, Rod, tell me if I'm wrong, it's going to be a lot matchup dependent. I mean, if you're playing a team that wants to run the football, is going to try to run the football at you, he has a lot of value as a nickel in that game playing the run, right? As almost another linebacker playing a nickel position that can cover. So I think it's going to be matchup dependent for him where we see him. A lot of his snaps, and it's also going to be impacted by Derek Williams coming off a knee, Johnson Rubel, Xavier Filsame, Jonah Williams, Zelisix, the young safeties. If those guys show a lot to Dwayne Aquina this spring, then I think that even gives Texas more versatility with Gelani McDonald. If they feel like they're going to have to play him at safety, then that changes the calculus, everything else.
You know me, Rod, we've talked about it. They started playing some 3-high safety last year, and for all the reasons you mentioned, you think about the John Haycock, the true 3-high, the kind of the innovator of it, being the middle safety in that defense. That's exactly what you want that middle safety to do. He's an elite run fitter from depth. He can play the ball over the top. He can spin down and cover. Basically, just kind of wherever you need him. I mean, I think that might be, at the end of the day, schematically, that might be his best position because he can do everything from there. But, I mean, they're not going to base out of the 3-high. They may run it a little bit, but they're not going to borrow Sark, they're not going to major in it. But I'm with Gerry. I think it's strictly matchup dependent. And, thinking about, I know I'm getting way ahead of myself, but thinking about that opener, Gerry, from what you just mentioned, I don't know if, a road game against Ohio State is necessarily where you want to throw one of those young guys out there. and let them sink or swim. So you might be better off with Gilbo at corner and Gelani McDonald at nickel showing up in Columbus.
Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah, I mean, I think you should keep him as that movable chess piece, though. I think that's pretty obvious, so that he can fill in some of those holes. And one of the things before we kind of end this preview about the cornerbacks, I'll double down once again on my theory. I do think you're going to get a little bit more man coverage with Texas this year, just kind of based on the coaches they brought in. I went back and looked at Kenoto Hudson's background. By the way, one thing that's really good about Kenoto Hudson's background, the new Nichols coach, he's been at places that with really opportunistic secondaries. I mean, when he was at Ole Miss, they were top 25 in interceptions one of those years. In 2022, with Western Kentucky, they had 19 interceptions. They had 23 in 2021. It's a lot of a lot of plays on the
Baker's D line was putting pressure on guys, and Hudson's secondary was picking it off at Western Kentucky.
Speaking of that, one other quick thing. One thing I love about Orfe's background, number one, a lot of man coverage. I looked at Longer Beam, who's the latest corner to come out for him at Rutgers. He's third highest man coverage rate among the cornerbacks coming out. Max Melton last year was second highest man coverage rate of the cornerbacks coming out. So a lot of man coverage, a lot of press man coverage, actually. But that secondary at Rutgers, this is why Mark Orfe's job is going to be so much easier. They didn't get much pressure on the opposing quarterback.
No.
In that 2023 season, when they had a top 10 pass defense, they were 105th in sacks. They were 107th in 2022. They were 84th in 2024. The pressure his corners are about to get now, it's like that first year I started with Casey Hampton and Sean Rogers up there. I was like, this is easy.
This is easy.
It's easy stuff. All right. Von Lane makes it easy as well, guys. Von Lane, if you tried flying, you tried driving between the three major cities in Texas, and I'm sure you have as well, Austin, Dallas, and Houston. You need to try Von Lane. I know you tried flying, you tried driving. Both of them are a hassle, more stress than they're worth. It's time to upgrade to Von Lane, the smarter way to travel between major Texas cities. I've done it multiple times. I've been to Houston on the Von Lane. I've been to the DFW area on the Von Lane. It is a fantastic, luxurious way to travel. And for the out-of-state listeners, Von Lane now connects Nashville, Memphis, and Atlanta. You can go check that out at vonlane.com. But let's face it, flying is a hassle. Security lines, packed gates, delayed flights, all for 60 minutes of a flight, and it's not worth it. Way too much stress on you. And driving isn't much better. You got traffic you got to deal with driving to Houston or to Dallas or to Austin. Hours of lost productivity, emails piling up, calls going unanswered, work left undone, all while trying to focus on the road. Not worth it. That's a wasted day of productivity, but not with Von Lane. Von Lane changes everything. Look, luxury regional bus travel, what some call a private jet on wheels. I can attest to that. It is fantastic. Sink into a plush leather seat with a leg rest. Stay connected with complimentary Wi-Fi. Enjoy complimentary snacks and drinks on every trip, plus delicious meals on select departures as well. If you need to freshen up, they even have hot towel service. If you want to relax, they got eye masks and pillows and blankets to keep you cozy. The Von Lane team takes care of every detail, folks, so you can sit back, unwind, and enjoy the most comfortable travel experience on the road. Business travelers, you'll recapture productivity, and leisure travelers, you'll enjoy time to sit back, relax, get pampered, take naps. And if you're planning a special trip, maybe it's a football game, or maybe it's a bachelor party, or a wedding trip, or a special event, concert, whatever, you can charter your own Von Lane coach for the ultimate group experience. Von Lane is first-class travel without hassle. See for yourself. Visit vonlane.com. That's VONLANE.com, and use the promo code OTF25. That's OTF25 for $20 off your first trip with vonlane.com. Once you have your first trip like me, you'll be back because the service is fantastic. All right, thank you to vonlane.com. Thank you, gentlemen, as well. Thank you, Gerry. Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate the expertise and the time. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes. He's the real MVP, and we'll be back with another position previews. We'll be doing safeties next time and continue talking about this Texas secondary. For Jeff, for Matthew, and for Gerry, I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers. Hook 'em horns.